I'd like to call the Howell Township regular meeting to order. Opening statement, please.
No problem, Deputy. Hang on one sec. Let me get organized. Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner: by the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on January 3, 2019, by the copy of said notice to the Tri-Town News and Star Ledger for information and publication on January 3, 2019, by the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on January 3, 2019. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with emergency exits for your safety. Upon exiting the meeting room, they are to your left and to your right. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Television. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich.
Present.
Ms. Richmond.
Present.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Here.
Mayor Berger.
She will be late. She will attend regular session.
Is there any reason or any subject matters for executive session this evening?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, we have personnel matters, potential litigation, and contract negotiations to discuss this evening.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Okay, I'm just going to read the resolution real quick. Whereas the governing body of the Township of Howell is authorized pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12 to exclude the public from that portion of the meeting for purposes of discussing specific matters as permitted by NJSA 10:4-12. Whereas the governing body of the Township of Howell intends to discuss certain matters which are deemed confidential pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12. Whereas at this time, the governing body of the Township of Howell cannot determine the time when a discussion to be held in executive session will be made public, but will disclose the minutes of executive session when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the Township of Howell that this meeting shall be adjourned to an executive session and the public will be excluded in order that the governing body of the Township of Howell may discuss the items previously listed, and upon reconvening this public meeting, the presiding officer will announce, if possible, the time when and the circumstance under which a discussion conducted in executive session will be disclosed to the public. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Executive session, we are now entering. Good evening, we are back in our regular session. The executive session minutes from tonight's meeting can be disclosed to the public when the need for confidentiality is no longer existing. May we do the pledge? Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Acceptance of the minutes from previous meetings, July 6, 2019. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Mrs. Woolman, we have a proclamation as well this evening.
Yes, we do. The Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over 2019 statewide crackdown.
And that is in this envelope, I presume?
I'm sorry, say it again?
In this envelope?
I'm not certain what's in your hand in the envelope.
Okay, where is the
But your
proclamation?
proclamation, though, is in your binders.
Bear with me.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
I have it up on the screen. Tommy will read it, if it's okay with you.
Please do.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead. Go right ahead. Thank you.
My pleasure. Proclamation Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over 2019 statewide crackdown. Whereas approximately 1/3 of all fatal traffic crashes in the United States involve impaired drivers. And whereas impaired driving crashes killed 10,874 people in the United States in 2017, whereas impaired driving crashes cost the United States almost $44 billion a year, whereas the past 5 years, New Jersey's roadways experienced 36,778 crashes and 697 fatalities involving impaired drivers, which is shocking to me. Whereas an enforcement crackdown is planned to combat impaired driving, whereas the summer season and the Labor Day holiday in particular are traditionally times of social gatherings which include alcohol. And whereas the State of New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety has asked law enforcement agencies throughout the state to participate in Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over 2019 statewide crackdown. And whereas an increase in impaired driving enforcement and a reduction in impaired driving will save lives on our roadways. Now therefore be it proclaimed that Howell Township declares its support for the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over 2019 statewide crackdown from August 16th through September 2nd, 2019, and pledges to increase awareness of the dangers of drinking and driving.
Thank you, Councilman, and obviously the importance of that proclamation can't be stated enough. Again, we encourage all of our drivers in Howell to be safe, obey all the rules, and we commend the police department and state police in the state of New Jersey for doing a lovely job of trying to save our lives.
And if you need a ride, get an Uber. It's 2019, or Lyft. There's plenty of ways to get a ride.
Very good, thank you. Okay, are there any discussion items at this time?
Deputy Mayor, I just want to bring up one quick thing under reports of township officials. Actually, two quick things. One, we paved Casino Drive last week. So that was using our CDBG funds, which was a long time coming. Unfortunately, that is a very long process through HUD and the grant program. However, that was paved and has come out very well. So we're happy that's basically done. Secondly, just a quick update on the brush collection. The storm that happened on July 22nd, I believe, since that time, the DPW has been collecting debris. We've actually, to this date, collected 315 roll-off loads of material, over 6,700 cubic yards of material that was brought in, trees, debris, things of that nature. And our DPW labor has also incurred about 200 hours in overtime because they've been working late every day to pick up additional brush. So the only thing left is zones C and D in our town. Zones C and D encompass Salem Hill, Candlewood, Oak Glen, everything kind of in this central part of town here, the large developments. Everything else was already done. And that's it.
Okay. We will be in time now for hurricane season, so let's hope that Mother Nature's good to us. Any other reports?
That's all we have.
We'll move on to the hearing of the citizens, and I have Barbara Dixell. Good evening, Mrs. Dixell. Nice to see you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Barbara Dixell, 62A Piazza Vittoria, Freehold, New Jersey. Good evening.
Good evening.
Before I start, hallelujah, Casino Drive was paved. We just drove down it the other day. It's, hallelujah. At least you're not going to lose the undercarriage of your car. Very nice.
Agreed.
A blessing. One of the things you can think of doing, and I'm not sure you guys do it because I think it's the county, is some of these mega tree limbs that go like this. They probably weigh a couple of 100 pounds each. Somebody maybe want to think of calling the county and slicing one or two of these things off that go over the road, Because if one of them falls down, guess what? It's gonna hit a car and kill somebody. They're huge. So somebody may wanna do that, because they arch the road.
Deputy Mayor, would you like to inform Ms. Dixell about our recent county shared service?
Absolutely. We did have a shared service with the county recently for some tree trimming around, especially around the reservoir, which is a county-owned property. And as they were trimming, we were in a shared service where they would trim some of the things on our side at a reduced cost. So we have finished that project, and some things have been done. And I do understand your concern of limbs that do go over the roads. However, to my dismay, the county does have rules of how much they will cut and where they will cut. And I will refer now to Mr. Herman. Maybe you can offer some other information as to why the county does not look at those overhanging limbs that we feel are dangerous.
The county does not cut around electric power lines. So some of those tree branches that you saw that are overhanging from one side of the road to the other, they felt were too close in proximity to the power lines, and that the power company would or should address those. So we did a shared service. The county agreed that they paid for everything on, let's say, their side of the road on their property, and we asked them to trim the other side of the road, which is in the township right-of-way, and they did quite a bit of trimming to do that. However, anything that was overhanging the power lines, they did not do.
Well, some of the stuff on Casino, and you would know, are not over power lines. These limbs are like this, and they're 15 and 20 feet long, and
We did not do Casino as part of that
No.
project.
Too bad, because that's dangerous. Anyway, 2 questions I have. The last council meeting that I was here, Penny wasn't here and Allison wasn't here. There was somebody sitting in that chair, neither one of them, who was it and where did they come from?
Mrs. Woolman?
Allison was at the last meeting, and then Allison was at the July meeting. June, Allison and I were both in attendance. May, I was in attendance. So I don't have any other staff members. A clerk is always here for you.
I know, it didn't look like Allison, it didn't sound like Allison. So,
It was Allison.
okay. Another thing I want to ask you, I know you have a lot of township employees when it comes to tax time. Heard through the gossip, through the grapevine, there's 50,000 whatever tax bills that have to go out. Did senior citizens in the Senior Citizen Center get involved in folding the tax bills to be sent out? This is what I heard.
I have no knowledge of that, but I will ask Mr. Herman.
Neither do I. There was discussions that they were actually asking to volunteer to offer help doing that, but I don't believe that was done. I know for a fact that employees in every department here during the crazy tax time were folding bills to get them out within the required time frame. So I don't believe that happened.
Well,
Lou, do you?
Deputy Mayor, I can confirm that the senior center was able to assist in
Thank
the
you. I was
folding
told.
of the tax
Yes,
bills this year.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
Lou.
all right,
There you
let me explain to you. They don't work for the town. I don't care who they are, a volunteer. You have paid employees to do the job, and it's their job to get the tax bills out. Senior citizen volunteers do not have to fold tax bills to send out to the citizens of Howell. Sorry. You did the wrong thing, you overstepped your bounds. The people who have to work here and work, did you have enough employees in the tax office to send out the bills?
Deputy Mayor, to my knowledge, the senior center director contacted myself and the tax collector and the manager's office and offered the help to us, and to my knowledge said that the group of individuals who was assisting were willing, able, and had the desire to do it. It was volunteer help that we accepted.
Well, that's none of her business either. She has a job to do, and that doesn't fall under her purview. And
Mrs.
your lawyer, township lawyer, just a minute, and your township lawyer should take her to task on that. That's not her business. People who work for this town, who work in the building, should fold the tax bills and send them out. Senior citizens in the Senior Citizen Center has no business, and the Senior Citizen Director has no business. It's not her business. and she should be taken to task on that. Thank you very much.
Your concerns will be taken to the manager, and he'll share
I'm
those
very sorry,
opinions.
but that's out of your realm, that's out of their realm, none of her business, none of their business. You people have a job to do. Come in and fold the tax bills yourself. People in the building can fold the tax bills. The senior citizens in the Senior Citizen Center do not have to do it, and it's none of the director's business to offer the help. That's not her job.
Your
Take them to
your
task.
position is well understood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dixell.
Thank you.
Tina Smilek? Good evening, Mrs. Smilek. How can we help you?
Evening, Tina Smilek, Charles Street, Howell, New Jersey. First, I want to start with the storm. Thank you to DPW Director Novella for adding on that extra pickup for us. That was a great thing. Also, I want to thank Chief Kudrick and his team, but Chief Kudrick was instrumental in getting out the word and having those messages on Facebook and keeping up the communication, which in the past has been truly lacking. And it was just a pleasant surprise to see an update every day of how we were doing with the storm, and I hope that continues.
Thank you.
First question is, what is going on with the tax collector position?
Mr. Herman, do you want to give the background on that?
Yes, so the tax collector is retiring at the end of this month. We have hired a replacement at the deputy tax collector level, and we will be awaiting her retirement and then potentially backfilling that position. The shared service agreement that was discussed at the last meeting is no longer on the table.
Was that position put out? The deputy tax collector, was that position noticed for
Yes.
anybody to?
Well, it's not a union position, so it doesn't need to be noticed to the union, but it was advertised.
It was advertised?
Yep.
And when was that advertised?
I don't have the exact date on the top of my head.
Was, so the employees didn't know. How many employees do we have in the tax collector's office?
Seven.
7. Out of those, how many are certified as a tax collector?
Currently, right now, 4, but one of those employees will be leaving as of Friday.
So we have 3 certified tax collectors, yet we are not promoting from within. We are going to take somebody from the outside and bring them in.
Well, Ms. Smilek, that's more of a personnel matter, so I don't think we're going to get into the details and nuts and bolts of who we hire. That's not really for discussion here tonight.
That's for your discussion. Here we do, here's our employees again, once again. Our employees don't get a chance. We've paid for these people to be certified and to keep them certified, yet they're not going to have a chance to move up in their position. I think that's a shame. I think you should really start with your employees and promote from within, or at least give them the opportunity to advance. I mean, it's just good morale, and it's a good practice of business to do it that way, in my opinion, for what it's worth. Shared service agreement with Colts Neck. Once again, what are we getting out of this shared service?
Acting Manager, Mr. Herman, give us the background,
So
please.
this is just the, we'll call it the yearly authorization or re-up of the shared service agreement. There is a litany of items listed. I can tell you, as of this date, there's only been one instance where the shared service was utilized. It was for a vehicle repair over in the mechanics shop of the DPW, and that's all we have done for Colts Neck in the last year. So it's more of a convenience. When it's convenient to them and convenient to us and we have time, we can offer our assistance as they need it. And so far, that has only happened one time.
I don't think our employees have time. I mean, it's leaf collection, we have enough going on here. I don't see the use of this agreement or how it benefits us at all. I mean, if it's only one time, why do we continue to do it? Let's just say enough and say, you know.
What does it hurt, though, at the same time? It's more just we're helping neighboring towns as we get help from other towns. We actually borrowed a bucket truck from them to utilize for tree removal.
Did you need a shared service agreement to do that?
We do.
What town is that?
Cold Neck. That's who we have the agreement with.
So not only this agreement, we have another shared service agreement?
No, this one.
Okay, but nowhere's on here it says that they're going to give us use of their equipment.
I don't have it in front of me right now.
But shouldn't it be on this?
Once again, I don't have it in front of me right now.
Again, I think this is a faulty shared service plan that doesn't really take into consideration everything that's involved in it and should really be more in-depth. I mean, if we get services such as, use of their equipment, what equipment do they have? How much will it service us compared to what we're giving them? Is an equal balance there? Again, we're just the taxpayers, and on our guys, we just hired 3 new DPW guys, and I know we need them.
So just to interrupt, Ms. Smilek, the shared service agreement does include equipment use.
Where?
Under number 1.
Exhibit A. It's basically a catch-all for everything that potentially could be needed between the towns.
Well, I think that should be clearly made understandable. I mean,
The only thing I would add is that the agreement also provides that Howell's under no obligation to provide a service. The agreement also provides that Howell's under no obligation to provide a service requested by Colts Neck if Howell is not then in a position to honor the request. So if your DPW is tied up and can't help, you're not contractually obligated to do it. So Howell first.
That's good to know.
okay. Your choice. 982 through 985, total added up is 59,914 added to our revenue, is that correct?
Yes, these are grants that were originally slated for the July 13th meeting, but were tabled due to they need 4 votes. And yes, these are grants, some of them that we get annually as far as Clean Communities and the Alliance grant, but those will be added to the budget through the Chapter 159 provision.
985, that is for a full-time employee, right? That covers our employee that's for them?
Yes.
Okay. And 986, there's a $2,000 difference. We thought we were getting 13, we ended up getting 11.
No, so what the 9A6 is with the Alliance grant, there is a match component, and because the Alliance grant it runs on a fiscal year timeframe, July to June, and our budget, Terry means, are on a January through December calendar year, we have to account for their match within our budget, and at the time of the budget adoption, the grant hasn't been added to the budget. So what we are permitted to do is that match component is budgeted in the budget as match for future Alliance grant. Once this grant does get approved, what the text and title does is allows us to move the grant portion of the grant match portion of the grant from the area where it's currently budgeted to include it with the Alliance grant.
But what's the $2,000 difference?
Bear with me.
2 months.
The correction. So the $2,000, that is the amount that remains in the match for future grants appropriation that is budgeted in the event that we do get a grant that comes along
That's their match.
after the correct. So there's a reserve, shall we say, that we budget for in the event that we do get a grant that there is a match component. I have that available to then do a text and title change
If they
similar.
don't want to use it for a grant, can they use it for something else if they feel? I mean, it's a great program.
Correct. I mean, then we would just need to do a text and title change, similar to how we're doing it now.
Okay. 987 is the antenna, which I have horrible cell service at home, so I don't mind the antenna there. But didn't we just pass that they're going to put antennas on poles or something not too long ago?
This is a request to co-locate on an actual cell tower. So we are just authorized, this authorizes us to go out to bid to allow another carrier to go on the tower that's already in existence, and then we would generate more rental revenue from that.
Look, I'm passing pages, I swear.
I mean, go faster.
Okay, 9833. Is this signed every year?
Yes, this is signed every year in accordance with our CDBG grant and as a requirement of HUD. And just to confirm, I did speak to Chief Kudrick, and this is a written policy that we do have prohibiting the use of excessive force.
Okay. And the mayor always signs it every year?
Correct.
Okay, 9835, our developers agreement. We're adding, 14 more units to that?
11.
11. In that, I noticed, right page. Okay, offsite contribution. So we're getting $800,000 from them, and that $800,000, 220 of it is given to us by giving us a property that they're going to buy for $220,000,
Correct.
correct? And then the $580,000 is going to be for doing the roadway realignment.
Correct.
Is that enough money?
Yes.
You're sure?
I did a cost estimate myself.
You're the man with the $4 million in the budget here.
That's for 18 miles of paving.
I know, but it just seems like it's not enough.
This is only for, we actually approached the developer and asked them what it would take to realign Sunnyside Road. They are not required to because they don't own the corner property, so the corner property was not involved. However, they did agree to acquire the corner property and give us that contribution, and that would be offset by the 11 different units that they would get on the increased density. This is us thinking ahead for once, and then saying that, you know, there would be no requirements on that roadway with the development the way it is today.
Okay.
It just, because it's a planning board case, it's not required to have improvements along property they don't front on. So in order to realign that roadway, I need them to buy the property, dedicate it to us, and then give us money so I can bring the road on a curve through that area and really improve that intersection, because the intersection has a very bad sight distance problem. And if we're going to do all this work and put 300 units there, we should probably think ahead and do some road improvements. In doing this, we essentially, yes, we have an increased density, but they're giving us $800,000 to do it.
I don't think it's enough. My biggest problem with this is twice you have it down. This contribution will relieve the developer of any improvements along Sunnyside Road, including the portion abutting their property or frontage, which means if we run into any problems, it's our expense then.
Yes, everything is our expense. So we basically said that they have a very small portion of Sunnyside Road they would be responsible for. Like,
The only reason
less-
we have to do this to begin with is because they're adding 319 units there.
And the only reason we have to do that is because of state law.
But we don't have to pay for it.
You asked.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong in that. I'm just saying I don't like the fact, you know, we're already paying for a pilot program. Why do we have to pay if there's more,
What are we paying for?
if there's more problems with the roads in the future? I don't like just closing it off, saying they're not going to be responsible for anything.
But the developers wouldn't be
once they give us-
responsible for that on a normal case of a normal development. Once they do their project, they're off the hook. Once the bonds are released, you know, if there's issues down the road, we're responsible. But that
it's-
happens everywhere.
But the bonds won't be released while they're doing this. And
They will not, no.
You know, at that time, they would still have a chance to go after the bonds. Would we still have a chance if there is more problems that occur during this, that we can
But
still go back to?
what problems are you anticipating in this regard?
We're in Howell.
All right, well, we don't have enough time for that conversation. But we're really just aligning the road for the last couple hundred feet to get it where the, 36-foot wide beautiful road ends, and then we have a 22-foot wide cow path, we'll call it.
I understand
So-
this contract was done by the previous, and approved by previous, you're just updating it, but I can just tell you, I don't like where it says that we are relieving them of any improvements, and it's said twice, so.
Well, it's off-site improvements. This is a
Off-site.
planning board case, as are the rest of the cases will be planning board cases, which are not required to do any off-site improvements.
Okay,
That's municipal land use law. which-
so then they'll, okay,
They're still required to do everything on Fort Plains Road in front of their property. So in front of their property, they're still widening, installing curb, installing sidewalk, do drainage, everything else. It's,
that corner.
we have the corner and then going up Sunnyside, which we asked them to buy and give us money to help fix, and they agreed, which I can say is phenomenal, really, for us. Or else
Okay.
we would have to pay all of it.
And was this property in negotiations of doing this back to 2015, since there was a portion of the Freewood Acres water sewer included for them to hook into?
No. We talked about this with MRSA about a year ago, when we started talking about the sewer system being installed and a potential to have them connect in. But that was not included in the design, so they'll still need their own TWA application, their own submissions to us, MRSA, OCUA, and the state.
But it was, we did get the stub line, or what, it just says in here that Freewood Acres Route 9, it was signed by James Prioli in 2015, so.
Right, the stub was not included. So what we're saying is that we're going to install a stub off the edge of pavement so that they don't have to dig up any pavement in our brand-new roads once we finish the sewer line
Is
to
that normal
connect to it.
when you get to the end of a line, that you
No.
leave it open for something?
Nope. So
It's
we're,
not normal.
they're asking to do it, and we're agreeing, and they're paying all the costs, and that way, they don't have to build a pump station. And that's part of the reason why they were able to give us some of the contribution, because they can do it by gravity instead of spending a couple $100,000 building a pump station, which nobody likes.
And our new infrastructure over there can handle this?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, motions for appointments.
Yes.
How do you decide who you're going to appoint?
Well, in most cases, as you know, most boards have alternates, 1 and 2. So typically, alternates are moved up accordingly. Also, should that not be the case, and at some point in time there is not an alternate, which I haven't seen since I've been involved, but there is an application that goes in at the beginning of the year. We have a book of everybody that has applied for certain things, and then we can go to that book and see who is interested, and see if they still have an interest in something.
Okay, so these are appointments are all from that book that you're going to make tonight?
Or from the alternates that are in place at this point in time.
Automatically move up, and then you're going to place somebody in the alternate position. Either way, you're going to be appointing somebody.
Correct. Correct. Except the mayoral appointment, we'll wait for Mayor Berger.
Yes. But all these appointments are from those applications?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And the other developers' agreements, can I ask about them now or later? Or not tonight because it's intro?
Go ahead, you're here, go ahead.
These are intro of ordinances, but they're not development agreements. I believe if you want to ask.
Are you asking about the zoning ordinances, is that it?
Yes.
Oh, all of the
It's not
ordinances?
developers agreement.
Not all the ordinances.
There's no public, yeah, I mean, they're just for the ordinance are just on for introduction
That's
tonight.
what I was
There will be a
asking.
public hearing
You'll come back for the
in the
public hearing.
September meeting.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, anything, as you know.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak this evening? Please come up.
Barbara, hold on.
I see a gentleman in the back, Mrs. Dixell. All right, Barb. He has given you the floor, a true gentleman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Again, Barbara Dixell, The Villages, 6208 Piazza Vittoria, Freehold, New Jersey. Did I hear correctly when Mr. Herman was addressed as deputy manager?
Yes, and he is acting manager this evening as
Okay.
Manager Geegan is on vacation.
Since he tends to be doing most of the work around here and he's also the Director of Community Development, he's getting paid for 2 jobs?
Yes, there is a stipend, yes.
You know, it's my opinion that maybe Mr. Herman needs to be moved up to be the manager, since he's doing the job anyway, and Mr. Bryan needs to be relieved of any position he holds in Howell Township, because he's not here, and evidently he needs a lot of help from Jim, so he's useless, in my opinion, totally useless. Maybe he needs not to be here.
Do you have any question for me,
No,
Barbara?
that's my statement. I think it's possible that Jim Herman needs to be the manager, since he's doing it anyway.
Well, you've elevated his position.
Yeah, well, you know what, he's doing it
And
anyway.
he's happy
You're
to
making
hear
him blush.
this. Yeah,
He's
he's
doing
blushing
it
over
anyway,
there.
plus the director of community development, and maybe you need to get an assistant community development director and move him into the manager's position, because he's doing it all anyway.
I would agree, he is a very good worker.
Well, like I say, that's my opinion. Maybe you'll all take it seriously.
Thank you. I'm sorry, there was a gentleman that wanted to come up? If you could give us your name and address, please?
David Kelly, 615 Fort Plains Road,
Hi.
Howell. Couple of quick points. My wife was here last month, came before the board due to a flooding issue
Yeah.
created by the Walters Group development on the corner of West Farms and Fort Plains.
I recall her, yes.
Okay. So some of that has been addressed. They put in a berm about 4.5 feet tall, 10 feet wide. My situation, my lawyers will handle. My statement here tonight is simple. You have other developments being built in Howell. You waived a 50-foot, 15-foot high berm, not this particular board, but the prior board. And by doing that, wiped out the back of my property for the last 4 months.
You said a 50-foot buffer, are you referring to a farmland buffer? Okay.
I'm an agricultural property.
Okay.
That's zoning. The council, the prior council, obviously, stated that that wasn't necessary after being told repeatedly that it would flood, just by doing what they did. This one's a question. I want to know who approved a major site change, and how was it approved?
Excuse me. Mr. Herman, would you explain the absence of the farmland buffer and then go into the 4.5-foot high buffer that he's referring to?
Well, the buffer was reduced due to the COA obligations to put as many units as we needed to put on the property. Because it was a 100% affordable project, they had requested some reductions in buffers, as you know, and that's how it got down to 30 feet. My question to you is, what change are you speaking of?
The grading change. That's
Who-
over
who-
35% of that project was a major site plan change. It wasn't a minor change. They raised the grade by 5 feet, 300 by 600.
Where, against your property?
Yes.
So I looked at that the last time when your wife had mentioned it. I didn't see any grading change from the plans that were submitted till the final plans. So I don't know what was
The final
testified
plans-
to, but the grading contours that I saw on the plans were the same ones that they were.
You told
back.
my wife that those plans were altered due to grading issues.
No, I told your wife that they had to
just
bring
watched
in.
the whole meeting.
They had to bring in fill, right, which was originally supposed to be a balanced site. So the site was supposed to be a no net import or export,
Net zero.
net zero. And during the final layout, they said, well, we need some fill because somebody, let's say, miscalculated based on the fact that you have foundations and slabs and sidewalks, and they also had more topsoil than they originally thought. So they anticipated 6 inches of topsoil or 4 inches of topsoil on the site because of the soil borings. And when they went out there and cleared and graded, they found the topsoil layer to be 6 to 8 inches thick instead of 4 to 6 inches thick. What that did is it caused numerous yards of material that was topsoil that's not suitable for fill, okay? So what they have to do now is get rid of the topsoil, the excess, and import material that's suitable for fill to build the foundations on. So that's why the fill was being brought in, because
And I
the
completely
topsoil
understand
was
that. The topsoil
more
is
than they
not
thought.
stable. I completely understand that. But if you removed 8 inches of topsoil, why did it have to be replaced by 5 feet of backfill?
Well, it's not that those numbers don't work. It's whatever the grading was, which I don't have at the top of my head, but
I can tell you right now, I stood on it today. Hit it with the transit. It's 4.8 higher than the original grading
well,
at the
I mean,
beginning,
if
and it
you'd
gets
like
higher
to,
as it goes down.
Mr. Kelly, if you'd like to meet with our consulting engineer and my deputy, who I know you've met with on multiple occasions in the last 2 weeks,
Justin,
absolutely.
I've seen him once in a month.
He was out there today as well.
Justin doesn't come around, he hides.
Well-
CME, on the other hand, is on their game.
Well, CME is the one responsible to the inspections.
And I understand
So
that
Justin is the
completely.
one making sure that CME is doing their job, right? So Justin is not responsible for this development, which I've explained to you and your wife, I think, earlier.
I got it.
Okay? We're making sure that CME is following up and doing what they're supposed to do to make sure that something is fixed for you, right? So
Okay,
I've
but back
received
to my question was simple. If you took out 8 inches of topsoil and you replaced it with 5 feet of fill in a net zero project,
Right, so.
where was there a net zero? You just picked up 4 foot 2 inches of dirt.
So these are
out of an
conversations that
8
need
inch.
to happen with CME and Justin, and I can sit in on them if they need to be, to determine what you're talking about. Because what you're saying and what I see on the plans don't match. Okay, so if it is 5 feet of fill, yes, if I understand what you're saying, then there should be a gross error in the grading from the plans, okay?
Let me show you that gross error.
So
If you got a minute, I'll show
well,
you.
it's not really the time to do that, okay? So like I said, if you want to set up an appointment, we can do that.
That backfill overall.
I
who
can't
approved
say because I don't know that that's true. Because like I said, the plan that I, Mr. Kelly,
Topsoil being
why
pulled
don't-
out and
why
fill
don't
being
we-
bought in. That's the question.
why don't we set up,
Coming in.
why don't we set up a time where you can come in and meet with us again, or come to our office to show the plans, and then we can go through them with you. Because you asking me and telling me that something's 5 feet different when the plan I saw last time did not show that,
My
I need
transit
to,
says different.
okay, well, I need to see for myself.
Okay.
Right? So let's set up a time, if you want to call my office tomorrow,
Absolutely.
and I know you have my email as well, we can get together, and
I
you can
may not,
show
but
me
my wife
what
does.
the differences are.
I will
Now,
see
today,
Ralph in the morning.
we authorized, well, actually, it was last week, we authorized a berm to be installed
Mm-hmm.
along the property line, which was not on the original plan, right? So we asked them, and kind of CME kind of forced them to put the berm in to prevent the groundwater from sheeting off of their site in a southerly direction and going across your property. So that was, I believe, done today. I believe they were stabilizing it this afternoon.
Stabilized today, yes.
Right, so that was in an effort to satisfy the flooding issues that they have experienced, and they have. They it absolutely has run off onto their property.
My point here is
So-
simple. The berm was, I've seen it done here. I believe I'm the only property in Howell that was denied that 50-foot, 15-foot high buffer in an agricultural zone. I've sat through meetings where it was argued for 2 hours where it never existed. A house burned down, the guy rebuilt a new house, and then they wanted him to put a berm in. It was never there to begin with because it was a farm. Every time that gets waived, now I have livestock on my property, I have horses out there. My horses have now been trapped for 4 months in a 50 by, well, now it's bigger, but it was 50 by, say, 40 paddock because we had no soil sample reports. None of that was made available. CME actually came across with those. You're flooding out neighbors every time you approve these high-density projects and you waive these requirements. And I get it. You're trying to fulfill your COA requirement. I certainly get it. But the lack of one unit down that row, it's 2 buildings. So instead of a 5-unit building, it should have been told to be a 4-unit building, and that berm should have gone up. Period. There's no discussion there. So you gave up one and you buried a neighbor that's lived there for, that property's been in my wife's family over 50 years. We've never had flooding. But because that berm, the issue would have never came up had that rule been applied. Period. And now, I'm the one out there fighting with these people to get things done. Luckily, CME, Laura, and Ralph are awesome. A couple city councilmen have been in touch with us. But the town created the problem to begin with. That's my point. That could have been stopped here in the planning stages and said, look, no, we can't, we're not going to waive that. This is what we've always required, and it's going to be required here. So for 3 COA units, I've been out of my property for 4 months out of the back end of my property. It was inundated with water up until, when did the rain stop last week? 20 minutes, I had 3 inches of water running across my property off of there. I'm sure you've seen the videos. They were forwarded to you. We forwarded
I
to
have.
Justin.
Yep.
that can't happen again. So you have another high-density project going up down on the other end of Fort Plains Road in Sunnyside, correct?
Yes,
Which also abuts on agricultural property, correct?
correct.
And I would tell, on behalf of those neighbors, because I'm screwed already, excuse my language, they're not. Require that buffer. That 50-foot compression and weight is what stops the water. Now, if this 5-foot berm holds, I'll be impressed. It doesn't have enough mass to hold. Over time, it's going to wash out. They graded that entire property now, that's higher than mine, and pitched it directly into my property. On the north side of my property, the south side of theirs. Now, over time, they have leaders coming off the roofs, you have non-permeable surfaces, and we're surrounded by retention ponds. So I have a huge retention pond, which isn't draining already. It still has 4 feet of water in it. Last heavy storm was 10 days ago. It's still full. Their pond number 2, which is a smaller pond, that's an overflow pond, that fills up, and then it's supposed to spit back out into the road and back to the main retention pond. That they're putting a cinder block retaining wall in. I can guarantee it'll shatter after the first winter. Cinder block is permeable. It's going to freeze, it's going to break, it's going to collapse. It is directly behind my run-in shed. I've brought that up with CME. They're going to try to address that with Walters.
So are all of these issues that we can discuss in person?
Yes. I just want them on the record.
Okay.
You have another high-density project. You people are going to be the ones that make those decisions when that time comes on those plans. Keep what's going on right now to my wife, my daughter, and I in mind. Because that berm is what makes the difference. That weight, height, and compression is what holds that water back. It's basic engineering. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And please be in touch with Mr. Herman's office so you
Tomorrow
can
morning.
continue.
Not a problem.
Deputy
you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilman.
I would, just a message to our professionals, continue to make this a priority. I ask you. I've seen it up close. I've seen the videos, and I don't care what it costs. We have to be a good neighbor, have to do what it takes to make sure. I know you guys are on top of it. I know CME's been on top of it.
CME has been outstanding.
We should keep the open lines of communication. We should do, and if the berm doesn't work, let us know, and we should immediately be out there to fix it.
I was going to tell with that, it depends how it's planted.
But we have to continue to be proactive. I know I've been getting the emails, Jim, from CME.
Rob and I have discussed at length. We both grew up in the trades, in construction our whole lives. We've dealt with the same issues for 40 years. So in the field, we know what we're doing. We understand what each other is talking
Yeah.
about. And he's right on the same page I am. Dave, as high as we can make it, they only want to go 5 feet. We're fighting with them to get that because the town waived the berm. That is why we were in this position. Because this not this particular council, but the prior council waived that berm. No offense to anyone. If you don't understand what it does, don't make a call on it. Speak to your consulting engineers. They can tell you what works and doesn't work. That was not done. Because had that been done, CME would have told them from the beginning it needed to be there. And that was not the case. That's my point here tonight.
I can assure you that every attempt is being made to rectify this problem as quickly as we can.
And I understand that. My point is, let's not make it another problem 6 months down the road.
I thoroughly understand your position.
Deputy Mayor, I have one more question.
Yes.
This question is for Mr. Baer. We have these 3 additional zones tonight. They're all ML zones, Mount Laurel. Are all 3 of these zones, the farm buffer just gets waived? It's automatic? Does it supersede that? Does the Mount Laurel zone deny someone like Mr. Kelly that buffer? Because we have 3 more tonight. So will that mean we'll come across this again? We'll be denied these buffers?
It's nowhere in the Mount Laurel ruling. I know, I've read every page.
No.
I was at the planning board, and I think that's...
boring.
Mr. Baer, can you answer that?
I was at the planning board, and I recall Mr. Kelly coming up stating...
I asked for the berm then,
Correct.
and was told unequivocally, absolutely not. The builder doesn't have room to put that.
And plantings as well, I recall.
Yes, well, the plantings they were more than happy about. And then that's where the fence you brought up at the last meeting came up. Well, we'll put a 6-foot chain link fence up there. Chain link doesn't stop water.
So the question is, these next three zones,
No,
Does that
there's
mean-
not an automatic waiver of a farm buffer.
There
That
is
other,
not.
so we've had, at least where the ordinance is on the agenda for tonight, and even, I think this is the Howell Family Apartments
Yes.
one. The CME planner in Jim's office has been directly involved in reviewing and revising the bulk standards, including buffers. So there's no automatic waiver. I mean, I have to look through each one as we're sitting here, because it's a planning issue, not a legal issue really, but there's no automatic waiver from Mount Laurel. I mean, it may have been done in the Howell Family Apartments site plan because of what they submitted, but there was not, quote, automatic under the law.
Thank you.
You all have a good evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the consent agenda? Hello. Your name and address, please?
Good evening. Bob Morris, 435 Shady Lane. Over the last two meetings, I believe it came up, I actually spotted on Facebook, Lake Louise. That's been a pet peeve of mine for a long time. I grew up at that lake since I was 5 years old, and I've been fishing still to this day there. I spoke to the Republican Club several years ago, and it was a gentleman, John Costigan at the time. I don't know if anybody's familiar with him, but he came down with me, looked at it, and this, that, and the whole bit, and it got to the point where we were standing right along Lanes Pond Road, and a car goes by, and John almost fell in the water, so I grabbed him. I said, John, is this safe for me or my son? He says, no, absolutely not. One thing led to another. I says, why don't we open up that beachfront? I used to sit on that beach as a kid, you know, and it's overgrown now, this, that. The town, under my knowledge, purchased that for $8,000 from somebody upstate New York. I think it was the Gentrys that used to own it. But anyway, the town they bought it, and they were supposed to open that up so we could fish along there. But the biggest thing I'm after is, I know it's been talked about dredging and this and that.
Yes.
Back when I talked about it, there was grant money available. Like, can't we apply for a grant? Because I heard this morning, I'm watching the meeting, I guess last month's meeting, and it came up, there were two options. Either pay, I think it was $5 million, or the $12,000 to spray something in the lake or whatever it was. What about grant money? Can't we file for grants? I mean, don't we get grant money from the state every year? I mean, restoration.
We certainly do look for grants. Mr. Herman, would there be any grant money available for this specific Lake Louise?
Not for this, and not that would make it worth our while to do.
Really? What about?
But if you find one and I don't know about it, absolutely send it to us. I'll apply as long as I think it's reasonable. But yeah, you know.
Is it true that we own the beach, though?
We do not.
We do not. What did we purchase? Do you happen to know, like in the last 10 years? Because the town supposedly
We did not.
purchased it.
I'm
Really?
100% positive we do not own
Wow.
that.
All right, because the Republican Club CC'd me with copies of everything and all that, and my computer got hacked, so everything went to the
But
wayside, so
we
I
are,
have no proof.
just an FYI, I reviewed 95% complete plans for the dam and bridge replacement project that we're going to undertake more than likely in the spring.
Yeah.
Part of that will include realigning the roadway, so Lanes Pond Road will be widened and realigned for the new bridge alignment. We're also,
Lake.
correct, basically an Echo Lake all over again, but we're going to try to improve that area you're talking about. Also potentially added a little floating dock like we've done at Echo Lake, now Aldridge Lake and Sparrow Lake, we added those. So once we get this bridge job done, we're looking to create a little walkway and get it out there so that we can get off of that area you're speaking about
Can we
and
look
get
into
more
that
access.
beach area that's
Yes.
fenced off? It says no trespassing. It's got a chain lock on it for the last 30 years.
Yes, we are.
Please. Thank you. Who can I speak to follow up?
Me. Yeah, you can contact my office at any time and I'll give you an update.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to the consent items? Hello.
Hi.
Name and address, please.
Kathy Novak, 16 Stratton Drive. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I was sorry to miss the last meeting, but I did watch it on TV regarding Lake Louise. And Mr. Bassett, who lives on the lake's request. And I was following the interaction of information that was given to the council. I know a couple of you weren't here, but it wasn't that the lake, I have to say I am an alternate on the Lake Restoration and Wildlife Management Committee. And it wasn't a flat-out no with no reason why spraying wasn't recommended. And I would just like to give you a little update on Echo Lake, Lake Louise, Sparrow Lake, and Bear Swamp Pond. Echo Lake, the primary species in the lake is fanwort. This aquatic species is difficult to control due to its heavy waxy coating on the plant's foliage. The only approved product which can afford some form of control is fluoridane, which is sonar. The downfall of the product is that it has to be in contact with the plants for an extended period of time for any effectiveness. This being the case, it is not practical or possible to stop the flow in Echo Lake for an extended period of time. Therefore, chemical treatment is not practical or cost-effective. Dredging to a depth of 10 feet or deeper is the best and most permanent control measure. Lake Louise, Sparrow, and Bear Swamp Pond. Although each of these bodies of water do have problems with aquatic pest species, their depth is significantly deficient, less than 3 feet in all 3 of these bodies of water. Chemical treatment would be only a temporary fix for a more permanent solution. The more permanent solution is to dredge each lake to a depth of 10 feet or more. Winter water drawdowns in lakes and ponds can afford a marginal measure of control if we have an extended period of below freezing temperatures. And this was information that I received as being on this committee. And this is why I know about it. And Ed Runyon is the chair of the committee, and he made these recommendations. And I believe he has 54 years of professional experience in lake and pond management. So it wasn't just, the impression I got from watching the video was that, you know, we just said no, and there was more to it than that. And also who was on the committee is the late Mr. Don Smith. And so there's several people on the committees. I just wanted to let you know about it, okay? Thank you.
I appreciate you giving us that background information. Thank you. Hello. Name and address also, please.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Parisi, Two Castle Court.
Hello.
I wanted to come and follow up on if there's been any inroads made with enforcing the noise ordinance here in town. I was here back in the spring in March. The last information that was provided to me was that Mr. Clark had spoken with the county health department and they had not come to any shared services agreement. I had suggested to Mr. Clark at that time that perhaps maybe it's time that Howell Township delegate a code enforcement officer to go to get trained and certified so that they could enforce the noise ordinance in-house and not have to rely upon a neighboring town or the county health department. I haven't had any further...
I do recall your suggestions. Yeah. Mr. Herman, do you have an update from
I do not.
Attorney
Mr. Clark was handling that directly.
Okay. May I suggest that you put yourself in contact with Mr. Clark as soon as he returns from vacation?
Sure. Well, I do find it, it is public information that Mr. Bayer has served as the attorney for the Township Health Department, the County Health Department, excuse me. So maybe he could provide some insight as to whether or not there's been any discussions or where that's at?
Mr. Bear, are you aware of any discussions that has transpired?
No, I haven't served as the attorney for the county health board since more than a year ago.
More than a year?
More than a year.
Okay.
So I can't update you.
Thank you.
I mean, the ordinance says that it's the township's policy to, to protect residents from, excessive sound, for quality of life issues and stuff. It's been, October will be 2 years since the council adopted the new noise ordinance from the Department of Environmental Protection. I think that we're like way past overdue on getting an enforcement mechanism in place, and this isn't because of any issue that I'm dealing with right now, but I think that the residents, tax-paying residents of this town have a reasonable expectation if they come forward with a complaint, a formal complaint with a legitimate noise complaint, that the township has the ability with proper dispatch to go out and investigate it and issue a violation if in fact there's a violation of the ordinance. And without an ability to enforce it, I think that's really, it's not a good look for the town. It just is not. So I think that it's time that maybe the council has to talk to the professionals and say we need to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Herman, will you please take necessary steps to see that we can finalize this issue and come to some information that's viable for the public and keeping our ordinance current?
Will do.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public at this time? Okay, then I will close public commentary, and we will move on. Give me a second. Okay. On the consent agenda items, do we have a motion to accept, or do we have a motion excluding 9.8? Or are there any questions on any of these items?
I'll make the motion to move 9A1 through 9A36, excluding 9A8.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bonavich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Thank you. Motion 9B1. We will wait until Mayor, the mayor is available to make that appointment. It is her appointment. 9B2 is appoint a member to the Municipal Alliance. It's a one-year unexpired term expiring December 31st, 2019. Do I have a motion for a replacement?
Yes, I want to make a motion to appoint Stephanie Masbeth-Trentos to the Alliance.
Thank you. Is there a second to this?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And I would like to add that this is someone that the Alliance coordinator has asked us to consider for this appointment, as she feels that this is the most appropriate person. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bonavich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. 9B3, accept the resignation of zoning board member Herbert Massa and appoint a 4-year unexpired term expiring on December 31st, 2022. Do I have a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. Massa?
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. Mazza.
Do I have a second to the resignation?
I'll second that.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bonavich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes, and I'd like to add, it's with great thanks that I'd like to thank Mr. Massa for his time that he's given. I understand that he had a health issue in his family, which required him to spend more time at home than he could give to the zoning board, so I'd like to extend a hearty thank you to him. May I please have a recommendation for this appointment?
I'll make a motion to appoint for the 4-year unexpired term Jim Moretti, who is an alternate now, and appoint Dan Lachlan to the alternate position.
Deputy Mayor, if I may?
Please.
I think we are moving up, well, we're making a motion to move up Mr. Cantor. Is that correct?
Do I have to do it at one time?
I don't know if we have to do it in any specific
Well-
order. Penny?
No, I
No.
think one
Oh.
motion. I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so I just wanted to be clear, Tommy, that we're moving up Jim
Make-
Moretti from alternate 1.
I said that, didn't I?
Yes.
But no, but then Glenn
And-
Cantor is going to replace Mr. Moretti. And then
And-
we're going to
yes.
appoint, then we're going
Tommy
to...
didn't
I
mention.
missed a step.
Oh,
Yep.
that's okay.
That's okay.
That's why I'm
So
here.
we're-
I got your
so-
back.
Got my back.
Let's redo the.
Okay, let's try that one more time.
So could you, I'd like a motion to replace Mr. Massa as well as alternate 1 and alternate 2, should there be movement in those positions.
So moved. The alternate position will be filled by Dan Lachlan. Mr., sorry, his name?
Oh, Mr. Cantor, Mr.
Cantor will be moved up, and Mr. Moretti will fill Herb Massa's position.
I second.
And for clarification, Mr. Cantor will be alternate 1 and Mr. Lachlan will be alternate 2. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And there is a second.
I
May have
still
a-
second that one.
Thank you. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Bonovich?
No.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. 9B4, appoint member to the Lake Restoration and Wildlife Management Committee. It's a 5-year unexpired term expiring December 31st, 2021.
I'll make a motion to appoint Kathy Novak to this position.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Welcome aboard, Kathy, to the position. All right, we're moving along to the public hearings of the ordinances. Anyone wishing to speak? Oh, I'm sorry, are these roll rules?
Deputy Mayor, this is the
These are all
ordinances
interests.
that require you to read into the record a statement about each one. So we're at 10.1.
Yes. You should read the statement and open it to the public.
All right. The Land Use Repeal, Chapter 188, 151, entitled Appeals, and this is 01935, 10.1. This ordinance will repeal Chapter 18, 151, entitled Appeals, to remove the right to any interested party to the Township Council for any final decision of the Board of Adjustment approving an application for development pursuant to NJSA 40, 55D, 70D, and complementary provisions of this chapter. I'll open this up to the
Now,
public.
Ev,
I'm sorry?
this sheet, there's a portion that you need to read into the record,
And I don't have that?
and that's for each ordinance adoption. So let's
This is,
That's okay, hon. Oh, is this your book?
yes, and this is,
10.1. So each one,
sorry.
it's okay.
I'm sorry, I was looking
No.
only at this sheet.
Each one here is tabbed, so we're going to go to 10.1. We're going to click all of them. And then here's your statement.
Get a football?
This is how we do it.
Apologize.
You gotta make-
Ordinance number 01935, introduced and passed first reading on July 16th, 2019, and published according to the law, is now being taken up for further consideration and public hearing. Affidavit of publication of this ordinance is in the Asbury Park Press issue of July 19th, 2019. It's submitted and is noticed that a copy of this ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and that copies were available to the general public upon request. Penny?
Title of ordinance, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Howell repealing Chapter 188-151 entitled Appeals of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Howell.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Back to the other sheet. I'd like to open this up to the public. Any questions or commentary? 2 minute pages.
Tina Smilek, Charles Street, Howell, New Jersey.
Hello.
I'm just not getting this. If somebody wants to appeal, then who do they appeal to?
They would appeal, so if the zoning board approves a use variance under the current system, you could either appeal to council or appeal to the Superior Court directly, and this would just allow then appeals to the Superior Court.
So you're asking council to give up their decision-making on the town to let the Superior Court make a decision for what's best for our town?
Well, even under the current system, if an objector or the applicant was unhappy with the decision of the council, that's appealable to court.
But why would we want to give up any of our power? I mean, wouldn't we want to keep our power here? Like, this is your job. If you, don't you want anybody appealing to come to you if they're not happy with somebody else before they take it to the next step? Maybe you can decide it on your own.
I understand your question, and there is a mechanism in place, which is the court system.
So you're fine with letting somebody else make your decision for you?
This is not statutorily required by the council to fulfill this particular passage for a resident to come to us. And I am fine with doing this, yes, I personally am. However, at any time, public can always email us with concerns, questions, and any fact-finding they may require.
Okay, and then what can you do once they email you?
I can certainly answer and pass it along to the people that can help them.
So you can't help the residents, we have to let somebody else help the residents.
Deputy Mayor, may I, please?
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Let's be fair, right? Tina, we have people, volunteers, right? We just appointed quite a few of them who sit up here on a weekly basis, zoning board, planning board, and do their job.
Yes.
So we have to have enough confidence in those people that they're making the right decisions, correct?
Shouldn't you have enough confidence that you would back them in that decision? if
By
somebody's
appointing them
doing
and
it?
putting them up there, we are backing them. We appreciate every person that comes up here and volunteers their time.
They appeal, are they not going against their decision? They're not relying on their decision if they appeal it.
Listen.
That means they disagree with the zoning board. If they disagree with the zoning board and you wanted to back the zoning board, why wouldn't I be able to come to you and you say, I back the zoning board's decision and I agree, we appointed them to the position and we agree with what they're saying?
But again, that is our discretion. We're the ones sitting up here, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so to
And
be
I
fair,
wanted to
excuse
leave it
me,
here.
I'm speaking. Thank you. And to be fair to the volunteers that put their time in there and they review the applications and they listen to residents like yourself, and I have to have faith in them that they take the time and they make the right decision, and I support them 110%. Thank
Okay,
you.
let's say you support them 110%.
That's right.
I support them 110%. The developer comes in and they don't support them 110%. Then what? You just gave away all your power to support them.
I'm not sure that I follow this
I
logic.
don't follow that logic either, but.
Could try
So-
it again.
Your zoning board comes to you and they make a decision.
Well, the zoning board wouldn't appeal. So the zoning board doesn't
A
appeal.
resident.
So-
No, the zoning board makes a determination.
determination.
They either grant a use variance or don't grant a use variance.
Correct.
Either the developer could, if their use variance is denied, the developer could appeal. If a use variance is granted, an objector could appeal. As we sit here today, there hasn't been, Jim, has there been an appeal from the zoning board to the council here? And this ordinance has
Not
been
that I'm
on
aware of, since
This
I've been
ordinance
here.
has been on the books for years and years.
Do you recall how long the ordinance has been on the records?
Well,
The books?
I think
I want to say it was in the 70s.
Because I think John asked that question, right, John? Ironically.
It was on there
75?
75,
It's been there,
75.
yeah.
Right, and so most towns don't.
1870?
Right.
1975.
Most towns don't actually have this ordinance, some do, some don't. But in either scenario, if the zoning board renders a determination, if the court hears it or if the council hears it, you don't have a retrial of what occurred before the zoning board. The objector, whoever is appealing, would have to present the transcripts from the zoning board, either to the council or to the court, and you review it based on the standard of arbitrary and capricious, which is the legal standard. So in either case, it's based on the record before the zoning board.
So if the zoning board makes a case and a resident objects to that case, then the zoning board, they're coming in here to object, which means if you want to agree with the board and say, I'm sorry, you're wrong, you don't have that ability. The court would have to say, yes, you were right, or no, you're wrong.
The court would have to say whether the zoning board was correct or incorrect. But not just correct or incorrect, they'd have to meet the legal standard of whether the decision was arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable.
Again, I don't see why you wouldn't want to back your own board.
Tina, can I ask a question to Mr. Bear? Mr. Bear, is when in the scenario Ms. Smilek gave, it gets appealed to the council, the council could overturn the zoning board's decision.
Correct.
Then it goes to court, right? So they're going to appeal to the court. Does the court look at it at a de novo review? And can you explain what a de novo review is, if in fact that's the case?
Well, it would not be de novo. So it would be based on the decision, when the court reviews, like, for instance, a zoning board decision, or even if it was a council decision, the question is whether the decision was arbitrary,
Correct.
capricious, and unreasonable. So there's not that's the standard by which the court would review it. It wouldn't rehear the case as if it was like the trier of fact.
Okay.
Which is a de novo review.
Okay.
It would not be de novo.
It wouldn't be, okay,
No.
got it.
Yeah.
And now would the council's decision, say in Ms. Smilek's hypothetical, they approve something, we deny something, how heavy does the court weigh the council's decision to deny it, if any? Or are they allowed to take our decision into account?
Well,
'Cause
if
it's a,
if
you know,
the
it's like it's a
coun-
weird spot,
right,
because
if
we're,
the- yeah, if the council makes a determination, the appeal to the Superior Court would be then of the council's determination. And that would be entitled to deference, just like the zoning board determination is entitled to deference.
Got
The
it.
court's is not supposed to substitute its judgment for that of either the governing body or the zoning
Got
board, under either circumstance.
sorry, Tina, I just had a couple of
No,
questions.
that's perfectly right. So if they came here and appealed to the council, if I understand what you're saying, that would be the end of it. They can't go to the,
No,
or they can.
I'm saying
All right.
that zoning board decision, council decision, and then either side could appeal if they go to the council now, could then appeal the council's decision to the court. So the argument to eliminate the council level is it's really more expensive for either side, whether it's at like residents or developers, because then you're basically have an extra appeal process. Because either if whoever's unhappy with the result is eventually going to go to court, so that eliminates this sort of second layer of review.
I wouldn't give up any power if I were you. That's just I mean, we elect you to make decisions.
I
We
see-
don't elect you to pawn it off on somebody else.
I see what you're saying,
Again.
Tina. I totally get it. I totally get it. This one, though, and I'm gotta say, I'm kind of torn on this one. The zoning, if the zoning board decision can be appealed ultimately to the Superior Court, where I'm kind of caught up on is the deference that is given to the decision with regard to, I guess, who makes it so. Is the council in the best position to make a zoning decision, or is the zoning board the best position to make a zoning decision?
You're making 3 of those decisions tonight.
No, a zoning decision, not,
That's
a-
wrong.
not, not
You're
not an
wrong.
appointment, a zoning decision. Because like they have training, they go to classes
You're
and all
changing
that
zoning
stuff.
laws tonight.
Or introducing the ordinance. But I get what you're saying. You do, spot zoning changes for COA. I think it's a little different than a zoning change, regular zoning decision-making.
I disagree. I wouldn't relinquish any power that you have as council, and I would keep that power, and you always have the option in the end to say, we don't want to hear it, pass it on, don't you? I mean, do you have an option to say, I don't want to hear it now, and I think it's best to pass it on?
But why wouldn't appeals
Yes.
why wouldn't appeals go to court anyway? An appeal process from the zoning board, who know better than we know, because they're the ones sitting up there for hours hearing, let me finish, Tina, please, okay? I lost my train of thought. To make it a clearer process from the zoning board, if there is an appeal, to the court instead of the middleman.
Because the middleman I elected, and I want the little man involved.
Okay, so to be fair, when you run and you're elected and you're sitting up here, you can take back the power. But right now, it's a decision we're up here making, and you can respect it or not. And I know you keep saying, I would, but it's not you, it's me right now. And you're asking us for our opinions, and I'm giving it to you.
No.
Yes.
Opinion.
You just
I'm
did.
giving you my opinion.
Oh,
And I understand your opinion.
Deputy Mayor, if I may, this is like a
Please.
time for comment. I don't think you have to
Okay.
convince the resident as to whether the right or wrong of the position. It's just a question of she's certainly entitled to make her arguments and set forth her position, but I would recommend just keeping the meeting moving.
Thank you, Mr.
along.
Bear.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where are we?
Wait, really?
Hello again. Again, your name and address, please?
Mark Parisi, and I still live at 2 Castle Court.
I thought you might, yes.
I love zoning board stuff, so I did a little research about this. First of all, just good evening, everyone. I'm opposed to the repealing of this ordinance. I'm just put that forward. Are all of you aware that in the summer of 2014 that they had an ordinance to repeal this ordinance? That they attempted to repeal this ordinance in 2014?
I am not, but your point would be?
On July 15, 2014, on the preliminary agenda,
Okay.
there was an ordinance to repeal this ordinance. However, it was removed on the final agenda. So prior councils have weighed this issue and decided not to repeal this ordinance, just so that everyone
Well,
is
they
aware.
decided not to act on it. I don't know what their decision may have been, but they tabled it.
removed it from the
Okay.
agenda.
Understood.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So I think that when we get into these conversations about this stuff, that for your average citizen out there that's listening, you know, you hear variances, you hear a lot of technical terms, you kind of get lost in it. I think it's important that the citizens we try to dumb it down a little bit, and simplify it so that people understand what they're really giving up by this repealing of this ordinance. So in this case, the ordinance, as it reads in the township right now, is that any interested party, it's not just an objector, any interested party may appeal to the township council any final decision of the Board of Adjustment approving an application for development pursuant to NJSA 40:55D, 70D, and complementary provisions of this chapter. Such an appeal shall be taken in accordance with the provisions of NJSA 40:55D 17. And when you go and you read through those two different statutes, 70, D70, powers of the zoning board, explains that this is only for the granting of a variance. So this isn't about the denial of a variance, this is just the granting of a variance, which is essentially a deviation from an ordinance, okay? So the zoning...
It's a use variance only, though. That section of the land use law is use.
Okay.
It's not like a variance from a bulk standard relief.
Right.
It's only use.
It's a use variance.
So if the zone permits commercial only, and then somebody comes in to put residential, that would be, in that zone, that would be a use variance.
Okay. Well, thank you for that clarification. So it's a deviation from a use variance, and then it goes on to explain the different criteria, you know, or examples of different use variances in that law. I won't go through and read all that. I have other stuff that I want to get to. So it says under the appeal to the governing body, and it talks about, you know, why the state legislature, you know, enacted or gave a municipality the option to allow an interested party to bring an appeal of a use variance before the governing body, and it explains that. So I looked up some case law because I find it interesting reading case law. I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to that stuff. And there was a case called Grant Center versus Mayor and Council back in 1989, and in this particular case, it discusses prior legal cases, and there's two paragraphs that I want to read that jump out at me, and I think that it's really worth deliberating on what I'm about to read.
Mark, is that a published case?
Yes. It says, in one of the most famous zoning board cases, or zoning issues, is the Medici case. I'm sure council is aware of the Medici case.
We are aware.
Yes. So it says, moreover, under NJSA 40:55D-17A, although municipalities now have the option of providing by ordinance for the governing body's review of a board's decision granting a use variance, the governing body does not have that power in respect of a board decision denying the variance application. The distinction is an important one. By limiting review to only those applications that are granted, the governing body is involved solely in those decisions that might actually impair or significantly affect the master plan or zoning ordinance, otherwise leaving intact the exercise of the board's discretion in denying the application. And then it goes on to add, in the Supreme Court Medici case, this legislative scheme undoubtedly reflects the legislature's determination that boards of adjustment possess special competence to decide use variance applications, and that absent an appeal, no participation by the governing body is necessary. However, Delegation of the authority to grant use variances to boards of adjustment increases the likelihood that such variances may conflict with the intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance to a greater extent than was the case when the power to grant them was vested in the governing body. Tension between use variances and the zoning ordinance and master plan is less likely in those municipalities that authorize appeals from the grant of use variances to the governing body. So what I find really compelling about this is that prior to the municipal land use law, when somebody wanted to get a use variance, they would go before the zoning board, and the zoning board would make a recommendation to the governing body, and then the governing body would be the one that actually gave the use variance. It wasn't the zoning board itself that gave the use variance.
Well, that is interesting. However, now we do have in place, when the zoning board is hearing a case, they do have an attorney and other professionals with them, so that decisions that they do make are in keeping with the plan, you know, the plan that's been made.
Mark,
So-
Mark, what year was that case? Can you,
I'll leave it with you. It's 1989. You want it?
89?
Yeah.
You can keep it. I have the name. What's the name again? So I can look at it.
Grant Center versus the mayor and council. So,
But I do understand the history of this, which is compelling to a degree. However, thank God we do have those attorneys and professionals that continue to guide the boards along the way to make decisions that are within keeping of the plan that we have in our town.
so the only few things that I would want to add on this is that I appreciate what Tina had to say with the comments that came before me, is that the appeal to the governing body is an administrative remedy. And as it stands right now, an interested party could not bypass the town council and appeal the grant of the use variance directly to the court without exhausting their administrative remedy. They would have to bring that before you first. By repealing, that's not true?
Andy?
I'm sorry.
No,
The-
for your information,
the
a case was
process.
filed yesterday in conflict or to challenge a zoning use variance that did not come to the council.
Okay, so that's not considered an administrative remedy to bring that before council if there's an
No,
ordinance that permits that?
The statute, the MLUL says that you may appeal to the governing body, you're not required to. So you could go
So if
directly.
that were to be the case,
you
then
could
what's
go
the point of
directly to
repealing the
court.
ordinance? Because if somebody wants to bypass the governing body, they can just do so. But if they elect to bring it before the governing body, they can. So there's no harm, no foul in keeping the ordinance on the books. Repealing it just
there could
literally
be-
eliminates that interested party from having the option to bring it before the governing body. It doesn't make any sense to repeal it if that's the case.
Well, it does in the sense that they could go to court, or if they want to appeal here now, they can. They haven't, factually, they haven't.
So why don't you have residents
Well,
have that option? Well, that's my position.
Well, because they could go to court, because following whatever happens here, you're going to end up in court anyway. These use variance determinations are very controversial.
Well,
So,
I'll just close with this. I appreciate your advice.
yeah.
There are two different standards of review. Having brought a prerogative action before the Superior Court, I know that the standard review is arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable. However, if an interested party were to appeal a use variance, the grant of a use variance to the town council, that town council's review would be de novo. Your standard review would not be arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable. And there's an important distinction to be made with that, as I'm sure you're aware. Lastly, I think elected officials can be held accountable for decisions readily through elections, whereas board members are essentially indemnified from such scrutiny. So we elect you to be up here. If the zoning board that is appointed members grants a use variance and an interested party wants to bring that before the town council to have you weigh the intent of the zoning plan and whether or not that use variance impairs the zoning plan, then you guys can decide whether or not the zoning board's decision was correct by a majority vote. And if the public does not agree with the decision you made, we can hold you accountable through elections. And I think that's democracy at work. I think that's very important, and I think that you guys should not repeal this ordinance tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Deputy Mayor, may I?
Quickly,
Andy,
Councilman.
there's a practical, I was just thinking about it when Mark was speaking, practical aspect to this ordinance. How likely would it be that a deep pocket would drag a party into, or I guess, appeal to the council to, I guess, bleed them out of money? So if there's an applicant that doesn't have, just a regular resident, and there's a big company, could that be used to kind of bleed out the
Yes, well,
the
yeah,
resident?
because if somebody appeals
Because you're
here-
forcing them to do another hearing again.
Correct.
Spending all the money on the attorneys, and then you're going to appeal it again.
Yes, that's a fair statement.
I mean,
I mean, it could be more costly because you'd have to have if you appeal here or have to defend the appeal here, there would be costs associated with that, and then this determination would be appealable to the court. So it would be an extra layer of litigation. Correct.
Can we hold the rest of the questions until after the public said it's
I'm
an
sorry.
opportunity to finish addressing this? Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to address this particular ordinance? If not, I'll close public. Are there any questions or concerns from the council?
Nope.
I think I got them all out. This is an interesting one. Anybody have anything? Any discussion?
I do not. I've opened it up for discussion from the members. Mr. Bonovich, anything? Councilman Russo? Councilwoman?
Nope.
All right. That being the case, I'm looking for a council person to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that ordinance number 01935 be finally passed and adopted, and that notice of its passage and adoption be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
I heard a lot this evening. Basically, I worked really hard to get the right to vote yes, no, or listen to the residents. I'm voting no on this.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. All right, next is 01936, 10.2. And this is an ordinance, ordinance number 01936, introduced and passed on first reading on July 16th, 2019, and published according to laws now being taken up for further consideration and public hearing. Affidavit of publication of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of July 19th, 2019 is submitted, and is noted that a copy of this ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and that copies are available to the general public upon request.
Title of ordinance, an ordinance authorizing the leasing of certain capital equipment by the Township of Howell, New Jersey from Monmouth County Improvement Authority and the execution of a lease and agreement relating thereto.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open up to the public for this particular ordinance. Hello,
Hello, Tina, Charles Street, Howell.
thank you.
I've got most of my questions out of the way already on this because I spoke to them earlier. I'm okay with the road improvements. Acoustic tile replacement. Oh, is this one, or are we on that? We're on the different one.
This is for the County Improvement Authority list.
Okay. So that's not road improvements, that's this one. So I was talking to Lou about this earlier, and I'm a little confused about the way this is voted on, because you have to vote for the whole thing tonight, correct? So
Yes.
when you vote, you may not agree with all of this, correct?
No, when you vote in the affirmative, you are agreeing with this ordinance in its entirety.
Meaning
you
you're going to
would vote
purchase
no.
all of these?
Or you would vote no.
No, for, Deputy Mayor, if I may, for this ordinance, this is the MCIA ordinance. So when we introduced this, we put in all of the equipment requests from the department heads, okay? And
Yes,
that-
but you're looking at every request. You're not
Correct.
picking and
that-
choosing at this
That
point.
was done as a placeholder, which Mr.
Yes.
Palazzo has informed us we do every year, or every MCIA year.
Correct.
And we issue that introduction, and then we have to give the County Improvement Authority a finalized list. That finalized list, okay, will be based on the manager's recommendations with the council's approval, okay? From there, you vote on the MCIA ordinance. So yes, we are in fact voting on the original ordinance to authorize up to the full amount. However, that number has already been cut back to 1.23 million from the initial outlay of, I think it was what was it, 2.3?
2.4.
Can I
Correct.
ask what has been cut?
Lou, what do we, do you have the list of? It's all equipment type items, because that's what we can buy through the MCIA.
There was a replacement inspection, an inspection SUV, which was a replacement, was removed.
4 of them? 4 replacement
Just
inspection?
one.
No.
Just one, so you're getting 3.
Correct. The 20-passenger transport van for the senior services was removed. The transit van for custodial staff was removed. The frontline ESU vehicle SUV was removed. The 8 portable radios for the police department. The VHF radio upgrade. The wireless connectivity upgrade for the patrol car laptops. Bariatric equipped ambulance. The replacement of the fire safety house. 1 heavy-duty truck. The open space mowers have been moved to the bond ordinance as they're going to be funded through the open space trust. Mowers for basic maintenance. A utility truck with plow attachments. Photocopier replacement program, and sewer utility truck have been removed for a total of $1,487,700 was removed from the original list.
Okay. And why was the frontline ESU removed?
So these were manager cuts. The manager is recommending what he felt was appropriate and necessary at the time.
Okay. Now, what is the next step? Does council get to go back and say to the manager, we'd rather see this stay, this go?
We have until August 29th to finalize this list to what we're, as I stated before, we can't necessarily add anything back. We can only remove what's on the list. So in order to finalize what we will be borrowing with the County Improvement Authority, we have until August 29th to finalize that.
I understand that, but when this gets approved, it's going to be approved for 2.7, even though we're not going to spend 2.7.
Correct.
So my question is, these aren't removed yet, council still, I know these are manager, but does council get to discuss this? Does council have
So
any say in anything here?
The council has received all of these cuts. They have reviewed them. We have gone back and forth. I think I've gone back and forth actually with all of the council members on comments, and that's what we're here to discuss tonight. So what you see here is generally where we're at, unless the council, when they open it up for discussion, makes any further changes. It'll be their discretion at that time, but everybody else has been involved in the process for the last many months.
Okay, I just want to say that I think the ESU vehicle is a safety vehicle. I know from being through the Police Academy Citizens Course that we are backlogged. We missed a year worth of cars that we are allowed to get, and I know the chief said that getting this vehicle will stop him from having to get more of the car vehicles, meaning that he needs 12, but he's willing to take 10 because this vehicle will account for 2 cars. Right now, the people that are in this vehicle, that would be in this vehicle, are trained for this vehicle, and they don't have a vehicle to complete their job in a safe manner. And I believe it's a safety thing, and I think with all the development going on and everything going on here, I think it is a great thing for Howell to have, and you know how strict I am when it comes to bonds and how much I think that we should keep our bonds down. I've been looking at all of these, and I think a lot of cuts have been made, and I think you're being very stringent on what you're approving. But I would just like to make the recommendation that the ESU vehicle remains. as I think it's important for our town and for the safety of the town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or concerns from the public concerning this ordinance? Welcome back, Mrs. Dixell.
Barbara Dixell, 6208 Piazza Vittoria, Freehold, New Jersey. Why is it that every time something comes up about a budget, about whatever, something that the senior center wants gets hacked? Why are you taking a bus away that they need? And you're the Mayor, you are the liaison to the senior center.
Yes, I am.
I don't want to see you vote yes for this.
Yes, I am
So
liaison.
I would hope you would respect the seniors, that you're the liaison, not to vote yes for this ordinance. It's not fair. Every damn single time the senior center bus gets hacked, it's not right. They need it. They need the transportation.
So
Thank-
Deputy Mayor, just
thank
to
you.
offer some insight into this, the senior center received a brand-new bus in 2017. They also have ordered another brand-new bus they will be receiving within the next few months. So within the next few months, they'll have two essentially brand-new buses. So I'm not sure where we're talking about cutting everything. And they will have
So this is
three older spares that we can utilize. So there will be two brand-new and three in reserve. I think one of them I think there's three that we run on a daily basis, which essentially means there'll be two backups. All three of those are older, but they're, let's assume that one of the three will always be serviceable and usable until we can spread out some costs over the next few years, instead of buying another new bus right now, and then 10 years from now, needing to buy another three brand-new buses all at once.
All right, well, these three older senior buses are real old and rickety.
I did have the senior director forward all of the backup information that she had with this request so that the administration can make a complete analysis of it.
I just don't want to
So,
see, I just don't want to see the senior center.
I understand. But last year, they were awarded a new bus. They did order it, and they are waiting for that to come in.
And they're getting
So,
it.
correct. That is correct. That is correct.
The senior center always gets the raw end of the
It
deal.
just seems to take a long time for things to come in, but that was ordered, and it is due to be here momentarily.
Let's hope
This-
so. All right,
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public concerning this ordinance? Any comments or questions from council?
I actually have two comments. Barbara, I just would like to reassure you that Deputy Mayor, being the liaison for the senior center, she fought very hard for that extra bus. She most certainly did. So I want to say thank you, Mayor, for sticking up and for the seniors, making, she fought for it.
I did try.
But with all the information that Mr. Herman just provided, it didn't seem fiscally responsible for us to use that kind of money for a bus when you're getting a brand-new one and one that is 2017. So I just...
I was not aware that there were two new buses.
Okay.
I just thought, I know they have three rickety old things.
That is...
That's probably ready for the junk heap.
That is correct, but I just want to make sure you're very well aware and put on the record that Deputy Mayor fights very hard for the seniors.
I understand.
Okay.
And we're also talking about the safety
I-
of these buses being on the road.
I understand,
Elderly
and that's a
seniors-
very big concern of ours, so... Well, we closed the public portion, it's my turn to speak,
No, I didn't.
so you can come up to the microphone if you'd like.
Okay. Was there anything else that you wanted to add to your comment, Barbara?
You have to just consider elderly seniors on these damn rickety old buses with wheelchairs, walkers, barely able to get up and down these steps, and these buses are tilted, they're this, they're that. They're not in the greatest of shape, so just keep that in mind with the safety and care of these real elderly, handicapped seniors.
Barbara, I'm just trying to reassure you
Yes.
that Deputy Mayor we all keep you in mind, but she fights very hard for you guys. We haven't forgotten, so thank you. My second thing is, I just want to put on the record that I recommended not giving the police department 10 brand-new police cars, and I did recommend, and I just received it today, which I haven't had time to review, but not to sound like a commercial, but I asked to check the Carfax on the police vehicles we have already in the fleet and in inventory. Again, I am going to review this, and I may make a different recommendation going forward. I'm not sure why we need 10 police cars, but I want to just put in the record that I will review this, and I will make my recommendation accordingly.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other concerns from the council members? Would there be a motion for this?
I'll make the motion. Motion that ordinance number 0-19-36 be finally passed and adopted, and that notice of its passage and adoption be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only.
Thank you. Is there a
I
second?
will second that motion.
Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Okay. Next is 01937, 10.3. Ordinance number 01936, introduced and passed on first reading on July 16th, 2019, and published according to law, now being taken up for further consideration and public hearing. Affidavit of publication, this ordinance has been in the Asbury Park Press, issued July 19th, 2019, is submitted, and is noticed that a copy of this ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board and in the municipal building, and that copies are made available to the general public upon request.
Title of ordinance, an ordinance authorizing the guarantee by the Township of Howell, New Jersey, or payment of principal and interest on the capital equipment lease revenue bonds, Series 2019, Howell Board of Education project of the Monmouth County Improvement Authority.
Thank you. I'd like to open up this ordinance for public comment. Is there any? Seeing none, I will close public commentary. Do we have any questions from the council?
Not at this time, Deputy Mayor.
Any concerns? I would entertain a motion for 01937.
I'll make that motion. Motion that ordinance number 0-19-37 be finally passed and adopted, and that notice of its passage and adoption be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only.
I will second that.
Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Are you talking now? Okay, 01939, 11.1.
Excuse me,
No, 10-4.
yeah,
Oh.
01938 we still have.
Hmm. Ordinance number 01938, I beg your pardon, introduced and passed on first reading on July 16th, 2019, and published according to laws now being taken up for further consideration and public hearing. Affidavit of publication of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of the July 19th, 2019 is submitted and is noted that a copy of the ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and that copies are available to the general public upon request.
Title of ordinance, an ordinance approving the acquisition of easement rights in portions of the properties located at Block 144, Lot 128, and Block 144, Lot 114 by negotiated purchase or eminent domain.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to open up to the public for this particular ordinance. Are there any comments or questions?
Nope.
Seeing none, I will close the public portion. Questions or comments from the council?
None.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that ordinance number 0-19-38 be finally passed and adopted, and that notice of its passage and adoption be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. 01939, 11.1. Salary ordinance assistant finance officer. Introduction is today.
Motion to introduce ordinance number 019-39 on first reading by title and to order the same. to be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on 9/10/19 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time in the Municipal Building.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Penny?
Title of ordinance, an ordinance setting forth and amending and supplementing the salary range schedule for the salaries of certain officers and employees of the Township of Howell. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Ordinance number 01940, 11.2. This is a bond ordinance, general capital improvements. Introduction is today.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance number 0-19-41 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on 9/10/19 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time in the Municipal Building.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Title of ordinance first is bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements and the acquisition of various capital equipment appropriating $4,696,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $4,395,000 bonds and notes to finance a portion of the cost thereof, authorized in and by the Township of Howell in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. 01941, 11.3, 2019 bond ordinance sewer improvements. Introduction is today.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance number 0-19-41 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on 9/10/19 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time in the Municipal Building.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Penny, would you please read the title of ordinance?
Capital ordinance providing for the rehabilitation of the Ardena Pump Station and appropriating $350,000, therefore authorized in and by the Township of Howell in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. 01942, 11.4, amend Chapter 8 entitled Affordable Housing, repealing and replacing Article 1 entitled Affordable Housing Management Services and Article 2 entitled Municipal Housing Liaison, and creating a new article entitled Affordable Housing Regulations, being introduced today.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance number 0-19-42 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on 9/10/19 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time in the Municipal Building.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Title, Mrs. Woolman?
An ordinance amending Chapter 8 of the Township Code entitled Affordable Housing, repealing and replacing Article 1 entitled Affordable Housing Management Services, and Article 2 entitled Municipal Housing Liaison, and creating a new article entitled Affordable Housing Regulations. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. 01943, 11.5, amend Article 10 entitled Zones, creating a new Section 188-84.2 entitled Moderate and Low-Income Housing Zone 12, to be known as ML12. We are introducing today.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number 0-19-43 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on 9/10/19 at 7:30 PM prevailing time in the municipal building.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Title of ordinance, an ordinance amending Article 10, the Township Code entitled Zones, creating a new Section 188-84.2 entitled Moderate and Low-Income Housing Zone 12, to be known as ML-12. Roll call, Mr. Bonavich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. 01944, 11.6. Amend Article 10 entitled Zones, creating new sections 184.3 entitled Moderate and Low-Income Housing Zone 13, to be known as ML13, being introduced today.
Motion to introduce ordinance number 0-19-44 on first reading by title and to the order saying be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be heard on 9/10/19 at 7:30 PM prevailing time in the municipal building.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Title, Mrs. Woolman?
An ordinance amending Article 10 of the Township Code entitled Zones, creating a new Section 188-84.3 entitled Moderate and Low-Income Housing Zone 13, to be known as ML-13. Roll call, Mr. Bonavich?
No.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Deputy, Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Zero 1945, 11.7, amend Article 10 entitled Zones, creating a new Section 180-84.4 entitled Moderate and Low-Income Housing Zone 14, to be known as ML14, being introduced today.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number 0-19-45 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in the 8/16/19 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on 9/10/19 at 7:30 PM prevailing time in the municipal building.
May I have a second?
Second.
Title of ordinance?
An ordinance
Sorry.
amending Article 10 of the Township Code entitled Zones, creating a new Section 188-84.4 entitled Moderate and Low-Income Housing Zone 14, to be known as ML-14. Roll call, Mr. Bonavich?
No.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Is there any unfinished business from the professionals or the council?
Not me.
Councilman Bonovich, anything?
I do, before we close, I do want to thank Rob Seaman and Bill Stanton for helping with the cleanup after the storm. They came out, gave their time and effort, helped neighbors in need. Rob Seaman also, I saw him using a table saw to cut down a giant branch, which is pretty crazy. But he's committed to his town, and I really appreciate his service. So thank you, Rob and Billy.
Yeah, and again, DPW and the police department did a wonderful job. And I'd like to thank the citizens for actually reaching out and helping each other. I did see neighbors helping neighbors, and that was very, very nice.
I'm sorry, I changed my mind. I have something to say.
Councilwoman Richmond?
I'd like to thank Jim Herman and Andy Bear for stepping in and stepping up when others are on vacation enjoying themselves, wherever the heck they may be. Thank you, Andy and Jim, for doing a heck of a job and getting us out of here before 10 o'clock. Much appreciated. Barbara's right about you.
Didn't think that was going to happen.
Barbara is right about you. Thank you,
I would
Andy.
like to share that the municipal offices will be closed Monday, September 2nd, 2019, in observance of Labor Day. Also, our next regular meeting is Tuesday, September 10th, 2019, executive session 6:30. Normal session begins at 7:30. All is welcome to attend. Regular meeting again will be scheduled for Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. Again, executive session is at 6:30. Regular business begins at 7:30. Seeing no other business at hand, a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Ms. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Thank you, and thank you for your help this evening.
Everyone get home safe tonight.